I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume. So I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. So I'm continuing in my reading. We recently finished the Gospels. We read about Christ's visitations among the Jews, and we've read a little bit in Acts with his ascension, and then the day of Pentecost and the outpouring of the Spirit. But right now we are in 3rd Nephi. We had the great upheavals when Christ died, but Christ has now come to visit the Nephites. He has commissioned the 12, and he is now in the middle of delivering a modified Sermon on the Mount. Modified to fit the Nephite audience instead of the Jewish audience. Subtle details in there. And we read this in chapter 12. We read 2 videos in chapter 12. We are now going to finish chapter 12 of 3rd Nephi. This will be verses 33 to 48. And again it is written, Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But verily, verily, I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair black or white. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever cometh of more than these is evil. And behold, it is written, An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye shall not resist evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn thou not away. Let's pause that for a minute, because this is fascinating to me. This portion here, if a man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. If he will compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. That's exactly what we read in the King James Bible. And as I said when I was reading Matthew, this gives the impression of don't be stingy, don't you? So he's going to sue you, and instead of just being strict and saying, I did $101.19 worth of damages, and that's all I'm going to pay, just repair it. If you pay $110, don't worry about it. If you pay $150, don't worry about it. Just don't be miserly with your stuff. But that's not what it says in the Joseph Smith translation. This matches the King James, but not the Joseph Smith translation. The Joseph Smith translation, we had the clarification, if they sue you and take your coat, and then sue you again and take your cloak, let them have both. If they compel you to go a mile, go with them a mile, and if they compel you to go 2 miles, go with them 2 miles. So we have that clarification in the Joseph Smith translation. That wasn't in the King James, and it's not here in the 3rd Nephi. I find that interesting. I'm kind of curious as to why. Why didn't Christ give that clarification in there to the Nephites? Now, as I said in reading Matthew, there is this theory that it was Roman law that they could force you to carry stuff. They could compel you to carry stuff for them, but only for 1 mile. They couldn't force you to go more than a mile. And that never made sense to me. It still doesn't. I don't believe it's true. Partly because, when they crucified Christ, they compelled Simon the Cyrenian to carry his cross for him. And while the place of crucifixion was near the city, there's no indication that it was less than a mile away. So most likely Simon probably carried the cross for 2 or 3 miles. So that never made sense to me. And the Joseph Smith translation makes it kind of undoes it completely. That's not what he's talking about. It's very interesting that he doesn't have that clarification here. We also have the not forswear thyself. Again, it's the idea is that in the Book of Mormon especially, we read taking oaths was a very significant thing. And so it doesn't surprise me that just like they were among the Jews, if you didn't swear an oath, it wasn't binding. And Christ is saying, no, just saying you're going to do it, that if you agree to do something, do it. Whether you've sworn it on an oath or not, do it anyway. Just do it. Anyways, let us continue verse 43. And behold, it is written also, that thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But behold, I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them who despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father who is in heaven. For he maketh the sun to rise on the evil and on the good. Therefore those things which were of old time, which were under the law, in me are all fulfilled. Old things are done away, and all things have become new. Therefore I would that ye should be perfect, even as I, or your Father who is in heaven, is perfect. So here we need to mention two things. First, and most famously, he is now including himself as an example of someone who is perfect. Now, in the Joseph Smith translation, this is made a commandment, therefore I command you to be perfect. Here it is, I just hope you are perfect. I would that you would be perfect. This is my will, this is what I want for you. And even in the Joseph Smith translation, it's be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Now it is be perfect even as I, or your Father in heaven. So Christ is now declaring himself to be perfect. He is now resurrected and glorified. He is now perfect. That is what he wants for us. But then note this, is that in the King James, after he says, do good to them that despitefully use you, so that you may be the children of your Father who is in heaven, who sends the rain on the just and the unjust. In the King James, it then says, for if ye do only what the publicans do, what reward have you? If you do only what that baseline, we get that in the King James, but here in 3rd Nephi, instead of that baseline of if you only do what the publicans do, then what reward have you? We instead have old things are done away, the law is fulfilled in me. Now that is, before this it was, we're still under the law of Moses. In Matthew, they're still under the law of Moses, and so that's the baseline. That's what is required under the law of Moses, but you need to do better, you need to do more. Now Christ is saying to the Nephites, now that he has been resurrected and the law is fulfilled, now doing that baseline isn't even enough. Now this isn't what's new, this is the new standard. In Matthew, he wasn't actually changing the standard for the people. All the people were still under the law of Moses. And so those who lived the law of Moses were still not condemned. They were still saved according to the law that they had. But once he is resurrected, once that law is fulfilled, now the standard is actually raised. And now all the law of Moses is done away. All the old is done away. What was permitted under the law of Moses is no longer permitted because we now have a new standard. And that is a profound difference here between 3rd Nephi and Matthew. We see this throughout this chapter. We'll probably see it a lot in the next two chapters, that in Matthew they are still under the law of Moses, and so Christ speaks to them through the law of Moses. The Nephites, being after the resurrection, the law of Moses is being done away, and so the message is being altered, being tailored to the new situation. What is new, what is old is done away. What is new is now here. We don't put new wine in old bottles. Do away with the old, and we bring in the new. And leave that here, and in our next video, we will be reading the first half of chapter 13. So I will see you there.